First story. Am I that bad for suspecting my wife of cheating over Instagram with her ex? I 35M and wife 35F have been together for 9 years, of which 6 years married. When we first met, I fell in love immediately and knew she was the love of my life. But we only became friends as she was in medical school and not in the right place for a relationship. We hung out almost daily for couple months, started texting frequently and talking on the phone, then officially stated dating couple months later 9 years ago. She asked me to drop her at the airport as she was going to visit her best friend, 36F, and spent time with her for couple days and I would pick her up after. During this time at her best friend's house, she would only contact me at random times as she stated there was bad service there and also busy with her friend. We barely FaceTimed but still communicated daily over text. I didn't think too much into this as I know she hasn't seen her best friend in a long time. During this time she posted a really beautiful picture on FB and I asked her to share it with me as I liked it a lot and wanted to make her profile picture in my phone. When I picked her up from the airport, she was really happy to see me, but did not tell me much about her trip, as she didn't really want to talk about it. I dropped the subject and moved on. Couple weeks later when we officially started dating, she saw her pic as my phone screensaver, the same pic she had shared with me from her best friend's house. She was visibly upset and wanted me to change it, but to this I told her I really liked the picture and wanted to keep it. She kept insisting that she doesn't like the photo and don't want me to use it. Eventually I changed the pic after she told me we could do our own photo shoot that weekend. Couple days before Valentine's Day we were talking on the phone, and I decided to tell her about the plans I had for us to celebrate our first Valentine's together. She started crying and told me she didn't want to do anything that day, and she's been lying to me for months. She explained that when we first met, she was in a long-distance relationship with someone, and that's who she went to spend time with over Thanksgiving with his family, 38M. She said they have been together for years in long distance, and she previously spent the entire summer living with him and his family before medical school. How they argued a lot and didn't think they were right for each other, but she really liked his family, and they even discussed marriage. During Thanksgiving they argued again and she broke things off with him. That's why she only messaged me during random times when he wasn't home. I was heartbroken, hurt and felt betrayed. I hung up the phone and cried. She tried calling me back couple times and sent me multiple messages, but I needed my space. Couple days later we spoke and I decided to move past this as we weren't officially in a relationship at the time, and as I said, I loved her. Eventually we got married and I presumed she lost all contact with her ex. He lives in FL and we in Cali. Fast forward to now. Couple days ago while at work I get a text message from my wife telling me that her ex's mother is sick with brain cancer. I was shocked and wondered how she knew that. So I responded, "I'm sorry to hear that," and didn't say anything else. When we both got home from work, she brought up the conversation again and called her mom to tell her about this lady having brain cancer. After she got off the phone I asked her how did she learn this information. She looked at me hesitantly and said ex's name told her over Instagram. I asked when did they become friends on Instagram and start talking. She said they are not friends. So I asked the question again, how did he tell you this if your profile is private? She said she saw his page tagged in another message of him playing piano. She commented on his playing and he responded to her. She said she apologized to him on how things ended and started catching up. In that he told her about his mom. I was angry and asked her why was she talking with her ex or even commenting on his page. I personally do not contact any of my ex or even comment on their page, much less have them as friends. She said this was unfair and she always had a good relationship with his mother and felt sorry for her. To which I responded, I understand that, but it wasn't the mother that reached out, it was her ex from them talking on Instagram. I asked her about their texting history and she denies anything between them and that this was the first. However, I am suspicious and she refuses to let me see her phone. I told her that this makes me not trust her, and I feel insecure about all of this as it reminds me of the same lie around him from when we first met. She said she understands how I feel, but it was just a simple text conversation. I left the room angry. We don't usually hide phones, and both have each other's passwords, but never felt any need to check. Since this argument, I feel like she hides her phone at times. Am I overreacting or just paranoid? Am I that bad for suspecting her of cheating with him and wanting to search her phone? Second story. Wife cheated for 3 months. Have 2 kids. How to cope? She cheated for 3 months and still has a secret phone she thinks I don't know about. We have 2 small kids and I filed for divorce, and she's soon to be served. Now her whole family paints me as the bad guy. I recorded her saying I am the sole responsible for the kids and it's my responsibility to spend on them, not hers. The thing is, how do you cope? I can't believe she tore my dreams and future apart, and she just continues to party and act like nothing. She keeps seeing the guy and I want her to leave, but she won't for the kids. I work so hard for our future and she just wants the money and house, and uses the kids as alimony fuel. I have the bills to prove it, that I pay everything, but no court will give me primary custody, and due to work travel, will soon leave my kids if she gets primary. I cry every night and can't even eat, as everything is nauseating. How can I make it through knowing she can take my kids away? Update. Letting go, hear me out. I posted sometime earlier about the affair I experienced from my STBXW. Served her and now going through the usual phases of who moves out and kids. But I noticed something different. After going through anger, pain, and now acceptance, I realized nothing I'll do will change things in her. Now I noticed I don't really care what she does, now I only care about my kids. I even put it on the line, we could try couples counseling but not to go back, but rather to be friendly enough for the kids. I can say she is now worried about throwing our future out, as she opted to request separation instead. What if one of us regrets it, she says. That showed me for a second her fear of moving out, and me not being her security blanket anymore. Karma will come back, maybe it won't, but it's time to move on. If I am honest, I am willing to forget, but I know she doesn't love me anymore, and that keeps me going towards our kids' future, not ours anymore. Forget and move on, as nothing you do will change things, but you change yourself. I watched the OG Jungle Book with my kids yesterday, and the words stuck in my head. And don't spend your time looking around for something you want that can't be found, when you find out you can live without it and go along not thinking about it. As funny as it sounds, it made me realize I love my kids, and the idea of her is finally gone from me. Third story. Should I stay or should I go? Several weeks ago I found out my wife, 50F, of over 30 years, was having an emotional affair for 6+ months, via text and iMessage, with a guy in his mid-30s, who she bought jewelry from. I confronted her and she admitted to it, first saying he was just a friend and then admitting it was more than that. She said it was my fault as I have been working so much, says it's the first time, and that he broke it off when he found out that I knew. She also swears it was never physical. She won't go into any details about what was exchanged said, but refuses to answer the question of what would our adult sons say if they read the texts and photos sent. She has deleted them all and gotten a new phone. We have had a good marriage for the most part, but have been drifting apart over the last year or so. We were recently working on our relationship and made some changes in our lives to try to help. She refuses to talk this through with me at this point. She claims she needs time. She is bringing up a bunch of things from the past she says she resents me for and saying I am making too big of a deal over this, so it's difficult to believe she is sorry. I am devastated by all of this, and this is the last thing I ever imagined she would do. I am angry at her, broken, have lost all trust, and am still shocked. I would like to find a way to make this work and save our marriage, but at this point I can't see a clear path for it. While I can't believe I am at this point, getting a divorce seems inevitable. Would like to hear from some people who have been through similar circumstances, the choice you made, and whether it was a good choice. Thanks. Update. Thanks for all of the feedback and advice. Some additional context. Both sides of the extended family already know. My in-laws are staying silent. My family thinks she has lost her mind and is going through a midlife crisis. She told our adult children. 3 are pissed off at her. The 4th is trying to be neutral. At the beginning of this, I was trying to find some common ground to work from and trying to save our relationship. The few discussions we had went bad quick, and I realized she had held on to every past argument and issue we've had. More to come as this plays out, but we'll be seeking out a lawyer to start to at least understand the process. All of this is surreal as I thought we would be spending more time with each other in our empty nest phase and planning our retirement in the next couple of years. Now I may have to face starting a new chapter of my life by myself instead. 4th story. Suspicious girlfriend. Dating for 5 years. She was cheating with many men at work for over a year. Girlfriend came home drunk high and suspect her of lying of whereabouts. I'm 32M and girlfriend is 29F. We have been dating for 5 years. She wants to marry me, but I have stalled for some time now because I have some money and kind of scares me. Always wonder if I can do better. She recently finally moved into my house that I own about 3 weeks ago. So we live together. Girlfriend is generally wonderful in every way and does everything you'd want a girlfriend to do. Last week she was at a party with like 70 people from her office. The CEO guy rented out a small local bar offering free food and drink. My girlfriend invited me to this event, and I hung out there from like 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Men and women there. Some people cool, some people alright. Normal gathering. Eventually I was tired of interacting with people so I left and she said she'd be home later. She was not home by 11 p.m., so I called her 3 times and she didn't answer. I called her a 4th time, she finally answered, and was clearly very drunk. She claimed she was in the bathroom at the bar. I couldn't hear anything else. This was around 11:15 a.m. She told me she would be taking an Uber home, because she is drunk and would be home by 12 a.m. She got home at 12 a.m. and was very drunk. Her eyes were bloodshot red and was also high on weed. I said, "Where have you been?" I went on Google and the bar you were at closes at 10 p.m. She insisted that she was just at the bar the whole time with coworkers. I suppose it is possible that since the bar was privately rented by her company, it stayed open later. But I highly doubt this. Just doesn't make any sense if the bar closes at 10 p.m. and she was still there at 11:30. That's BS. I interrogated her on the spot asking where she really had been and told her my gut instinct is always correct, that I know she is lying. She got defensive and called me insecure, said I was picking a fight for no reason, and gaslighted me. I continued standing near her in my house as she brushed her teeth meticulously, odd and rare, and kind of acted intimidating, glaring at her and telling her, "I know you are lying." Next day she comes home from work with a wrist brace and she sprained her thumb and went to urgent care. I asked where and how did that happen. She told me it happened during work hours at the office the day before. When I asked the same question later, she changed the story and said she had slipped at the bar last night and landed on her thumb. She is lying about multiple things. I tossed my unlocked phone over to her and said, "If you're not hiding anything, let's trade phones. You can look at anything on mine and I'll look at yours." She got angry and yelled at me and wouldn't let me touch her phone. What do I do now? Update. At the time, I was simply suspicious of my girlfriend coming home drunk from a work outing one night. But my spidey senses were through the roof and I knew there was more to it. After this incident she was out of town on a work trip for 1 week. So I had no time to bring it up to her after yelling at her initially and demanding answers prior to her leaving for her trip. Then, We had a pre-planned trip to Mexico. As soon as she came back from her work trip, we were on a plane at 6 a.m., 3 hours later to Cancun. The first night in Mexico, I woke up at 8 a.m., and after memorizing her phone password, I went through her phone. I found messages on Facebook from one day earlier, and going back years, asking some guy from her old gym to stretch her out. I found hidden TikTok messages between her and her work clients. She had met with men and had sex in hotels while on work trips, or maybe fake work trips, as far back as 1.5 years ago. She had 10 more guys she was DMing on different apps at a time, sending sexts, commenting how she was so wet at the brewery last week, when you put your hand on my lower back. She sent and exchanged nudes and videos with these guys. She was doing it all the time for months or years. Multiple guys at once. All of them were her clients to whom she travels to, and some others from gym or previous gyms she had attended. Mostly older guys. Some fat, some attractive, some poor, some rich, some on steroids and buff, some ugly. She literally just sexted any type of random older guy. I was trapped behind enemy lines in Mexico, with a hurricane coming through. So I simply acted normal. Had sex with my GF a lot. Way more than usual, and mentally blocked the extreme pain. When we returned home, I sat her down and interrogated her for 1.5 hours. She first admitted nothing but began trickle-truthing. I knew it was one or two guys, but I bluffed hard, acting like I knew more, and got her to admit to even more. Even so, she would never admit to actually having sex with anyone, even though I had 100% proof. Distraught, I told her we were breaking up, but ended up giving in and staying with her for 2 additional weeks, with her living in my house. I'm an idiot, I know. She said I'll never do it again. I made a mistake, which I knew wasn't true, but I was scared of being alone and ripping the band-aid off. Yesterday, I'd finally had it and snapped. I kicked her out of my house and told her to get out immediately. She left with a suitcase and apparently applied to apartments nearby and will be moving belongings out this weekend. I texted her mom and dad and politely told them the details of their daughter having sex with 5+ colleagues and clients and staying in hotels and sending sexts with dozens of men. I am super upset, but happy she is finally gone for good. This girl was part of my family, did so many sweet things for me, and supported me in all ways, being a model human and girlfriend. Beginning 6 months ago, she had started urging me to marry her, and saying that I need to propose soon, while having sex with multiple guys at work. Anyways, that is my story. How the heck do I move on and get over this? I wasn't the best boyfriend and I have flaws and can be really mean and angry, but I have never betrayed a friend or girlfriend. I took her for granted and didn't give her all the attention she wanted, but the extent and numbers of guys with which she cheated seems very extreme. Any advice on how to move forward at age 32, with goals of having a healthy relationship and building a family? Fifth story. Need some encouragement, advice, or just some hope? It all started during the pandemic. My wife and I decided to add some excitement to our lives by signing up on a social site together. However, soon after, she began to withdraw from me emotionally, acting strangely and becoming increasingly secretive. She was constantly on her phone, and when I checked her profile on the site, I noticed she was active, despite us not logging in together for months. Then, unusual orders started arriving in the mail. Lingerie and other provocative items that she never showed me, indicating they were not meant for me. A few months later, she claimed she needed a retreat in LA due to work-related stress. I agreed to stay home with the kids so she could unwind. She acted sweetly before the trip and mentioned she would be unavailable due to the retreat's activities. Strangely, she didn't share any photos from her trip, which was out of character. Upon her return, I found a receipt indicating she had actually been in Seattle, not LA. The secretive behavior continued, with phone calls and text messages she took in another room. When I confronted her, she denied any wrongdoing and made me feel like I was imagining things. For the sake of our family, I tried to dismiss my suspicions, hoping her potential new interest would pass. She then suggested we take a break and asked if I could stay in our old apartment in the city, owned by her father. I agreed and stayed there for several months. During this time, my kids mentioned that an unknown man was staying in our house for extended periods. When I asked her about it, she initially lied, eventually admitting that he was a friend who needed to be in New York for cancer treatments, a story I knew was false. I received frequent emails and automated calls from my kids' school about their tardiness and absences, which their mother failed to address. I had to intervene to manage these issues. My daughter became extremely depressed, missing my support at home, and my son began to act out. They reported a lack of proper meals and empty cupboards as their mother relied solely on takeout. Further reports indicated that this man was living in our house intermittently, and my wife and him even ordered a dumpster to discard my vast amount of art supplies, artwork and other belongings in the house. I'm an artist by trade. My children's school attendance continued to suffer, and their emotional health declined. Eventually, my daughter was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Her mother lied to both school psychologists and hospital staff, insisting on being present during any conversations with our daughter, preventing her from speaking freely. School professionals eventually saw through her explanations and grew concerned enough to potentially involve child services for a welfare check. In 2023, her father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I became his sole caretaker, managing his medications, feeding and clothing him, as she barely visited. I watched him decline until his passing. After his apartment was sold, I moved back into our home against my wife's wishes, believing my children needed me more than ever. I have been working to restore their routines, ensuring they attend school regularly and have nutritious meals. She insists I move out and go on disability, giving me a deadline, August 18th, so she can bring her boyfriend to stay, someone she has never even named or acknowledged to me. Since I've been the stay-at-home dad and, sometimes struggling artist since my kids were born, she is the breadwinner. I don't have enough funds for an attorney, but I'm trying to find pro bono services. I have nowhere else to go and my children need me. She has manipulated and deceived me for years, failed our children, and destroyed our family. I welcome any advice. It's been years of hell and I'm not quite sure what to do next.